What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it's the first Newswave of 2023, and wouldn't you know it, we have a pretty big rumor going around for the Switch that seems to pop up every year, and this time, it's not about the Switch Pro. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a pretty cool feature for the PlayStation VR 2 that was discussed in an upcoming game, and we'll also be talking a bit about Microsoft's initial lineup for 2023, as it appears one of their big titles could be coming a little later than we were expecting. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Silent Hill, specifically though what appears to be a demo that's getting rated all across the world, and a most recent rating kind of lines up with some talks about it maybe just shadow dropping out of nowhere for the new year. And we can see this posted up by Gamatsu saying, Silent Hill the short message rated for PS5 in Taiwan. So we have seen it rated in Korea as well. You can see that here. And there was some artwork, some like key art that also appeared alongside of that. They had a description as well. This playing into the idea that it's pretty close and almost ready to go. You can see the description here talking about Anita, who came to an abandoned apartment in order to meet her friend Maya, and somehow woke up to find herself trapped in it. And this is a nice way just to get the hype started for Silent Hill, that being just a demo that you drop. Kind of, I guess, some shades back to what we had with PT, but Silent Hill, obviously a lot of people looking forward to the big remake, some new titles in the series, and now maybe a demo, short message dropping randomly, so keep your eyes out for that. Also, to go alongside of a well-rumored title for the Switch that we're talking about here soon, there's also some stuff about F-Zero that was going around, which you can see posted up. This over on My Nintendo News saying that Nate the Hate boldly claims F-Zero's time will come in 2023. He's just starting stuff left and right, isn't he? He just simply said F-Zero time will come in 2023. I think this was over on Fama boards, or it was on Reset. I don't know, Nate's all over the place. But he says, as for Metroid Prime 1, Retro completed development of the game in late summer of 2021. For clarity, development finished then. It still had to go through QA, any localization, and such, mentioning that the game has actually been finished for a little while now, and we'll see again. We'll talk about that a little more later on. But as for F-Zero, yeah, I kind of think we are going to see something F-Zero related, as strange as that sounds, because Nintendo doesn't really seem to acknowledge the game much at all. I think an F-Zero GX remaster would make a lot of sense, and you pair that alongside of online play as a big feature that they would add, and let's face it, a lot of us would go out and buy it, and it's Nintendo, so it would most likely be the full $60 price, but I guess the GameCube version isn't too far off of that, and if you want to complete it, it actually exceeds that amount. This one, though, would have online play, so we'll see if anything actually happens with F-Zero for 2023. Oh, and just in case you missed it, just ahead of the weekend, there was a Nintendo Switch OLED model that appeared to leak online, that being for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I did an entire video on this topic because it was so interesting at the time seeing this Zelda leak make the rounds, and it was pretty obvious, I think, to most of us that this would happen. But there were a lot of talks back and forth on if it was legit at all, as it was a bunch of pictures that just sort of appeared on a forum. I'm still leaning towards it being a thing, only because it makes a lot of sense for Nintendo to have a Switch OLED model that's dedicated to a launch of, let's face it, probably the biggest game of the generation, and really something that's going to show what the Switch can do, and really the big swan song for Zelda on this current platform from Nintendo. So the images, you can find them pretty easily online, but something tells me here in a month or two, we'll probably have it officially revealed. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with another rumor that makes the rounds as frequently as the Switch Pro. It's basically a yearly thing at this point, and it has to do with Metroid Prime. For a while, it was about the Metroid Prime trilogy, and now it's broken off into just the first Metroid Prime, seeing a remaster/remake treatment, which now I guess I can kind of point towards maybe Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion as a good example as to what is kind of being hinted at here. But something odd happened to start the new year. We can see this posted up over on Reddit. This is from the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, where they say, I don't think I've ever made a post about this before, but I'm one of the mods of this sub, and I've gotten DMs from a random Reddit user in the past. If you read through his comments, you can see his creative leaking of Skyward Sword, WarioWare, and Splatoon 3 before they were announced in an upcoming Direct, mentioning that just 3 months ago, the day before Nintendo's Direct, they DM'd them that Zelda fans will be crying in tears of joy tomorrow, obviously alluding to Tears of the Kingdom, which was the official title for the game, going on to say that they had messaged them the other day saying, "Do you think everyone is primed and ready?" Since then, they say Funway has actually deleted their account, and they're just reaching out saying, hey, feel free to DM me with a new account so you can remain 100% anonymous. Now, the interesting thing about this is the moderator here has said that this person who's been sending information has provided some sort of proof that they would have access to that information, and that would mean most likely that it would be an employee at Nintendo, probably Nintendo of America, and most likely, if I had to just take a guess, probably in marketing somewhere as this stuff comes across their desk, preparing for a title reveal like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, there'd probably be promotional work there ready to go, and oh yeah, let me go ahead and message someone on Reddit to let them know 24 hours ahead of time. The interesting thing about this is, obviously, primed and ready. Look, we all know that means something with Metroid Prime. Could that just be Metroid Prime 4, and they're preparing a trailer or just a reminder that yes, it still exists? Because if you remember, it was years and years ago in January when they told us that they had restarted development of Prime 4 and handed it off to Retro. So in a way, we are coming up on an anniversary, not just of Metroid Prime, but also of them having to reboot development on Prime 4. And it's been very quiet, and whenever any mention of Metroid has come up, like Metroid Dread, they have said, oh, Metroid Prime 4, it's in development, it's rolling along well enough, but we'll have more information to share later on. Maybe because it has been years and years, and they've seemingly, according to some sources like Nate, been holding on to this Prime remaster. There's potential that they show up on Twitter or maybe just post a video on YouTube talking about this Prime remaster remake, and then also saying, yeah, Metroid Prime 4, we're still working on it, don't worry. The other possibility, of course, is that we are coming up on a Nintendo Direct, and most of us assume that one will be happening in the first quarter is a safe bet, but probably in late January, early to mid-February. That's typically where they try to target a direct-to-air. And sure, Metroid Prime Remaster Remake could be in there in some way alongside of other titles that have been rumored, something like that 2D Mario. But the biggest thing that, to me, makes me feel like it's finally time for Metroid Prime to appear, it's because Jeff Grubb cut his hair. You can see over on Twitter, come on. This is Storybook. This is how it works. He said that he would cut his hair if Metroid Prime Remaster did not release, or I guess even get announced before the end of the year. Now that he's done it, it would make sense that Nintendo would go ahead and announce it weeks afterwards just to spite him. But as always, take some of these rumors with a grain of salt, especially from an anonymous Reddit poster. Even though they've seemed to have been pretty much accurate the whole way, you never know with Nintendo. They could have had plans to announce and talk about Prime Remaster, then at the last minute decide to pull it and move on from there. So we'll see what happens as we head through January into February. 1, if we get that Prime Remaster just kind of announced, and 2, if we really are coming up on the Direct soon. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and the Xbox Series systems, as we are now moving completely away from the Xbox One. Microsoft has announced that it's going to be $70 for these Xbox Series games going forward, and it appears they are setting up 2023 to be a big year for Microsoft. I know that seems to be said at the beginning of every single year, but now they've delayed games into 2023 from 2022 that we assume are coming out. And in fact, I kind of figured one of them would be out potentially in the first quarter, and that was Redfall. I was kind of lining that up for maybe a March release. Well, it appears it could actually be coming out a little later than expected. We can see this posted up over on Windows Central, saying Xbox exclusive Redfall is targeting an early May 2023 launch date. Now, they do say that their sources corroborate these reports, as originally it was posted up by several people on Twitter suggesting this, and now targeting the first week of May in 2023. They did say that there could be an early access period. That wouldn't shock me. I'm trying to figure out, though, if that means that there would be like an early access closed beta, or if there was an early access period where if you pre-order the game or something, you get access to it 3 or 4 days early, which is really when it should have launched or when it was ready to launch in the first place. But this is strange because I kind of thought, just based on Microsoft pushing some of this stuff into 2023, that they would come out swinging immediately. They'd have something for February or March at the latest just to start setting the year up. We assume, and have even heard rumors, that they are preparing an event of some kind, and maybe that what would kind of take up January or February just to get things set up there. But you feel like you don't want to go all the way until May to release Redfall. I guess they could have Forza set up for late March or early April. Then you go into Redfall, and then you go into Starfield. Remember, they did say that Starfield and Redfall would be placed in the first half of 2023. But now there are some concerns going around that Starfield may not even come out this year. I actually think it will come out in 2023, though, but I'm kind of expecting it to fall out of the first half of 2023. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be an entire year delay for this game, and it comes out maybe October or November of this year. But here's hoping that Microsoft is ready to start talking here soon, especially when we start seeing things like, oh, May is when Redfall would come out. Maybe they do have some other stuff set up with Game Pass for February and March, but they got to start at least talking to their audience since they did skip the Game Awards. We'll see if they have something to announce here we're now into 2023, so the clock's ticking. Next up, let's talk about a company that's with Microsoft now, but a long time ago, they were partnered with Nintendo, working on different games for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, and that's Rare. Well, apparently back in 1988, they were working on a competitor to the Game Boy, the Atari Lynx, and the Game Gear. And wait till you see the name of this handheld. We can see this here. This from Time Extension, who had the exclusive on it, saying, meet the Playboy handheld, Rare's unreleased Game Boy rival. Something tells me Playboy was probably up on a whiteboard with Nintendo as they were working out a title for Game Boy, and they maybe crossed that one off after about 5 seconds of thought. However, you can see some images of it. Remember, this is back then with the brick Game Boy, the DMG. So nothing back then was pocket sized or any of that. And yeah, they were pretty clunky and large looking. Didn't have the D-pad that I think worked to set apart the Game Boy from most things around it. And also did not have the battery life. Now, this is a prototype, so it's not necessarily what would have come to market, but back then, yes, Rare was considering the idea of releasing their own hardware, in this case, their own handheld, and they've worked on other projects. They did stuff with an arcade board as an example, but the idea of putting this next to something like the Game Boy with battery life that was apparently worse than the Game Gear and not really having any large compelling software probably wouldn't have gone well for them, and that's most likely why they decided to pivot, partner with Nintendo, who eventually bought a large stake in them, and work on a bunch of games that many of us remember to this day. But certainly a really cool piece of gaming history, even though it didn't actually come to fruition and release to market. Still kind of fun to know that Rare at least got close to releasing their own hardware, but after a large pivot, ended up making some of the most iconic titles from the 90s and the early 2000s. I'll leave a link down below to the article so you can check out some of the images and some more history in detail. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation VR 2 that is quickly approaching, coming up on February for its release, but we are getting some new details around the games that will be part of its launch and initial year of release. One of those is the Dark Pictures Switchback VR. And while the initial trailer didn't necessarily catch my eye, I will admit some of the features that we're hearing about with these different games and the mechanics and how they're playing into the technology for the PSVR 2 makes me interested enough to try it out at least. But take a look at this. This is posted up over on MP First, citing an article from Edge magazine where they talk about one aspect to the PSVR 2. They say a door painted with the instruction "Don't blink" opens up into a room of blood-smeared mannequins in Harley Quinn masks. Their bodies twisted in unnatural poses. Eventually, we can't help it anymore and let our eyelids flutter closed. When they open again, the mannequins have been rearranged or have rearranged themselves. They go on to say that as they continue to blink, things keep changing in front of them. And that's tough. If you do a horror game and you can't blink, you have to keep your eyes open the whole time, or something bad will happen, or the puzzle will reset, or apparently just things in the room move around. That is that next level of interactivity that I'd be looking for with something like the PlayStation VR 2. We know it does have eye tracking technology, so that makes a lot of sense. And now I'm really curious, what other aspects to the PSVR 2 that could be worked into gameplay that we haven't thought of? Because I would have never, ever thought about that one. And that would have been something that would have been kind of cool to experience for the first time myself, just kind of going in unknown for that aspect. But now I'm kind of thinking about other games that may utilize some interesting features like that. I know the VR itself is still kind of niche, but hearing these kind of, I don't want to say gimmicks, but ideas in play does make me think people could at least become maybe curious enough to try it out at a friend's house, and then from there, maybe enter the world of VR. It's tough because of the price, I get it, but we'll see what other compelling software and ideas that these different developers can come up with as we head throughout the PSVR 2 and PS5's life. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will Starfield release in 2023? Look at this, wow, it's almost split down the middle. 51% say no, 49% say yes. Ooh, I still think it's coming out in 2023. Not the first half, probably holiday, a full 12-month or so delay. But I can't blame people right now, because Microsoft has been having a hard time getting large software out. Pentiment, that came out great. They've also worked to partner and fund some titles like High on Life to get that to the finish line and release, but I'm looking for them to be able to push out the big AAA blockbuster title like Starfield or like Redfall without any major issues, and that's the big challenge now, so I'm hoping they can come through this year. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ace saying, I think it's highly likely that the next Nintendo hybrid console would be backwards compatible, but only digitally unless their cartridges will be exactly the same. Have a great weekend, man. It's been a year. Hats off to the team. So the way I think they will handle this is, I believe their next system will still use cartridges, and it'll probably be keyed in a way that the current Switch cartridges will fit, but the newer cartridges don't fit in the older system, the Switch. It's kind of like the DS to the 3DS. You had that little notch on the 3DS and it didn't quite line up right for the DS or any of that. But I do wonder, as we head into next generation for Nintendo, if the writing is on the wall even for them when they look at the physical to digital split, and they maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, instead of a, I don't know, Switch Up Lite or something, they do a Switch Up Digital, and that's it. There's no cartridge slot on it. That's a big question, because once Nintendo starts to fold on the idea of holding on to physical media, I think that's kind of when things really just shift completely to all digital. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's Microsoft's first half to 2023 with Redfall potentially going into May. What do you think their first 6 months of the year is going to look like when it comes to releases? And then, Metroid Prime. Is it finally the year to get this big reveal, then maybe hear a bit more about Metroid Prime 4. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.